French President Emmanuel Macron has announced a huge increase in military spending. During an annual speech to the nation's military this afternoon, he said the budget from 2024 through 2030 would total some 400 billion euros. That's up from 295 billion euros from the earlier six-year period. His comments come at a pivotal time as war rages in Ukraine and following France's withdrawal of troops from Mali last year, and in the face of threats from across the globe.
While the military budget for 2019 to 2024 was 295 billion euros, I can tell you that I will be asking Parliament to approve a budget of 400 billion euros from the period 2024 to 2030. This would mean a total of 413 billion euros for our military needs. In total, these two military bills would mean that our army budget would double.
And for more on this, we're joined by our French politics editor, Mark Perlman. So, Mark, how is Macron justifying this huge increase in spending, and is he making a winning political argument here?
Well, obviously, he's doing this, first of all, because during his first mandate, the budget for the military already rose by some 36% after years of decrease. And this is why he used the argument, in the past 5 years, we've repaired the military. Now we have to transform it. And so this is why you have this increase by a third for the next 7 years, which is a big increase. And he said, well, the reason is simple. War is back on European soil. Nuclear deterrence, this is a French specificity, seems more relevant than ever, so we need to fortify this. And the threats are not the same. We have to fight the war ahead. This is what he's saying. So you have classical wars, but you have cyber, you have artificial intelligence. He said, yes, we need to think ahead. And with this money, we think that it's not only about being smart or nimble, but it's also having the means to do so, because Germany is spending 100 billion euros in the next few years. We see, obviously, the US has been spending a lot. And so what would have been maybe a few years ago something people wouldn't like so much, more spending on the military, is generally accepted. Although, obviously, there are other areas where people want more money, hospitals, schools, or even, obviously, the pension system.
Well, pension system is right. I mean, how do you think this is all going to go down with the French people, with the public?
I think the army, the military, is really the purview of the president. And I don't foresee people saying we're spending too much on the military because, yes, they see war in Ukraine, and it's not the same as war in Mali or war in Iraq, which might have been a faraway threat, although one could argue that it's not. But nevertheless, so I don't think this is going to be much of an issue. But however, when you say, okay, I'm going to spend 100 billion more for the military within the next 7 years, it's going to be more difficult to tell the unions, well, we don't have money for hospitals, we don't have money for schools, we don't have money for the pension system, especially after years of spending a lot of money during the pandemic, where people suddenly realized that all the budget restraints, all the policies saying you have to be very careful with what you spend because this is going to pile up debt, has been thrown out of the window. So it's going to be difficult for Macron to say, you know, I have to spend in some areas and be very watchful in others.
How does this announcement, this increase in military spending, line up with Macron's view of himself as a leader in the European Union?
Well, obviously, and he said this in his speech this morning, he said, you know, we have to continue building European defense. He said it's important, we've done a lot, and it's true that he himself has been an advocate of having an autonomous European defense policy. He said, yes, we have to build this up. Ukraine shows that we need this. Obviously, it has also brought back some relevance to NATO. Emmanuel Macron a few years ago declared that NATO was brain dead. Obviously, he's not using the same words today, but he said we need to be able to fight inside NATO, but also outside of NATO. And we have to fight as Europeans. We have to make sure there's more cooperation between the military, also more cooperation in terms of building weapons, in terms of purchasing weapons. So he says, yes, this is absolutely fundamental. France has a very strong army, the strongest army in the EU right now after the Brexit. So he said it's important, but we need to make sure that there's also European vision that helps us have a stronger military on the continent and be able to face up with the threats that we're seeing inside Europe right now.
Okay, our French politics editor, Mark Perlman. Mark, thanks as always.